For years, we've all been sold this one particular story about attraction, right? Be nice, be available, be accommodating. But what if that entire way of thinking is just wrong? In this explainer, we're going to unpack a completely different architecture of attraction, one that's built not on just giving away all your attention, but on understanding the real psychological triggers of human pursuit.
You know, it really boils down to this one powerful idea. Women don't automatically chase the nicest guy, the one who's always available, always texting back in seconds. They chase the man who creates a sense of intrigue. If a woman feels that spark of curiosity, that little hint of uncertainty about you, her brain literally shifts gears. She goes from just passively observing to actively trying to figure you out. She starts to lean in.
So how do you actually create that intrigue? Well, it all starts with understanding a core concept we're going to call the pursuit formula. Seriously, think of this as the master key that unlocks this entire dynamic.
And the formula itself? It looks deceptively simple. On one side, you've got intrigue, that feeling of, there's something different about this guy. And on the other, you have uncertainty, the feeling of not being totally sure where she stands with you. When you combine those two things, they create this powerful tension in her mind. And the human brain is hardwired to resolve tension. In this case, it does that by starting a chase.
And look, this isn't just some theory, there's actual science behind this. It's called the Zeigarnik effect. Our brains are basically wired to crave closure. They get obsessed with open loops, with unfinished business. So by creating that intrigue and uncertainty, you are literally opening a loop in her mind that she feels this deep psychological need to close.
Okay, so let's get practical. Let's talk about the very first law. This is where most guys completely stumble, because they kill attraction by rewarding passivity. It's such a fundamental mistake, and it basically trains the other person to put in zero effort.
I mean, think about this common scenario. She gives you a minimal, low-effort, one-word text. What's the typical mistake? Overcompensating. You fire back with a bunch of questions trying to keep the conversation alive. You're basically rewarding her for doing nothing. You're teaching her that she gets all the benefits of your attention without having to invest anything at all.
So the correction is really simple. You just have to recalibrate. You match her level of investment. If her energy is low, yours is low. If she's slow to respond, you're slower. When your attention becomes less of a guarantee, its value just skyrockets. That contrast between your presence and your absence, that's what sparks curiosity.
And that little spark of curiosity? Well, it leads us directly into our second law, the power of open loops. This is all about taking that curiosity and intentionally engineering it. It's about using that Zeigarnik effect we just talked about to your advantage.
So how does this actually work? Well, instead of laying out your entire life story on the first date, you create these little information gaps. For example, instead of saying, "Oh, I moved here for a new job in finance," you might say something like, "It's kind of a long story. Maybe I'll tell you about it sometime." And then you just leave it there. By ending conversations just before they feel totally complete, you leave her brain with this unresolved puzzle. It creates that all-important question, what is his deal? And that right there is the hook.
All right, let's kick it up a notch with a more advanced technique. The third law is all about creating a dopamine spike. We're going to use something psychologists call intermittent reinforcement. In simple terms, it's about making your attention something she actually craves.
The dynamic here is basically a push and pull. You create this high-intensity emotional peak, a spike, and then you immediately pull back, creating a valley. That emotional roller coaster is what makes her want to experience that spike again, and now she has to work for it.
So let me paint a picture of what this might look like. You lean in, you hold eye contact for just a beat longer than what's normal. Maybe you give her a confident, playful compliment like, "You seem like trouble." And then, this is the crucial part, you immediately shift your energy. You lean back, switch to a casual topic, maybe even turn to talk to someone else. That spike, followed by that sudden drop, is what creates the craving.
And this all leads us to the final law. And honestly, it might be the most crucial one of all. It's about understanding that your time and your availability, they are your most valuable resources. They have to be earned, not just given away for free. Think about it. A man who has purpose, a man on a mission, a man who has things going on in his life, he isn't just sitting by the phone waiting for a text. His time is scarce, and because it's scarce, it's valuable. We are all hardwired to value what's rare. That's not just a cute saying, it's a deep-seated psychological fact.
So here's a classic real-world example. She sends you that last-minute text to hang out. The wrong response signals that you have absolutely nothing better to do. But the right response, it's calm, it's neutral, and it sets a clear boundary.
It communicates that your time is valuable and that it needs to be scheduled in advance. It forces her to plan ahead if she wants to see you.
You know, ultimately, all of this really boils down to one simple guiding principle. When she genuinely invests, when she plans ahead, when she makes a real effort, you absolutely reward that. Be present, be engaged, have a great time. But when the effort is low, you match it. You never, ever overpay for passivity.
Now, applying these laws can totally flip the dynamic and get her to start pursuing you. But this is exactly where a lot of guys falter. They get the chase, and then they panic, and they lose the very frame that created the attraction in the first place. So the real question isn't just how to get her to chase, it's what happens next.
We're going to get into strategy. What do you actually do when she stops just sending signals and starts making a real move? So, okay, let's paint a picture here. It's happening. She's texting you first. You know, you're not sitting there wondering, waiting for the phone to buzz. She's the one starting the conversation. And then it gets a little more real, right? She starts to escalate. She breaks that touch barrier. Maybe a light, casual touch on your arm while you're talking. And then comes the big one. She asks, "So, what are you doing this weekend?" Now, let's be crystal clear. This isn't just small talk. This is her looking for an in. She is making a move. So the signs are all there. Her interest is pretty much undeniable. And this exact moment, this is the crossroads. This is where, honestly, so many guys completely drop the ball. So the question is, what do you do now? What's the right play? Okay, so it all boils down to handling this pursuit without messing it up. And to do that, you've got to stick to 3 core rules. We're calling them the 3 rules of composure. Now look, the strategy itself is pretty simple on paper, but it takes some real discipline. Step 1, you're going to plant the seed of action. Step 2, you're going to maintain your composure no matter what. And step 3, you hold back that validation until the moment is absolutely perfect. Let's break down rule 1, plant the seed of action. The whole point here is to make it super easy for her, to completely remove any fear of rejection she might have. So instead of you asking her out directly, you give her this clear, super low-stakes green light to make the next move. Simple phrases like, "Text me when you're free," or, "Hey, let me know when you're not busy." It's like you're handing her the keys and taking all of the pressure off her shoulders. You know, what you're actually creating with this is something called emotional safety. It's huge because now when she reaches out, it feels natural. It feels invited. It doesn't feel risky at all. See, a woman is only ever going to pursue when she feels secure enough to do it. And what you've just done is unlocked that door for her. Okay, that leads us right into rule number 2, maintain composure. So when her interest becomes super obvious, you know, she's leaning in, she's giving you compliments, she's escalating, your reaction or lack of reaction is everything. Staying calm sends this powerful nonverbal message that you're used to this kind of attention. And that signals something called pre-selection, which is basically this huge psychological trigger that tells her you're already wanted by other women. It's incredibly attractive. So how do you actually do this? Well, it's all in the small things, the micro-expressions. We're talking a slight smirk, right? Not some huge, cheesy grin. It's about holding eye contact, not nervously looking away. You continue the conversation like nothing major just happened. The absolute key here is to not act surprised or like you just hit the jackpot. That's how you keep the mystery going. And that brings us to rule number 3. And trust me, this one is a game changer. Your validation has to feel earned. Think about it. An attractive woman is practically drowning in a sea of generic compliments. You're so beautiful, you're perfect. To her, it's all just background noise. It means nothing. So instead of jumping in with those compliments, you wait. You let her invest a bit more in the conversation. And then you give her something specific, something intentional that's about her character or something she did, not just how she looks. Something like, you know, "I like how observant you are." And just like that, your words actually have weight. They mean something. I mean, it really taps into a basic law of economics, right? What is rare is valuable. Simple as that. Because your validation isn't thrown around freely. It's earned. It's specific. It becomes like a diamond in a pile of rocks. And boom, you just set yourself apart from all that other noise. Okay, so now that we have these rules as our foundation, we can actually start to map out the 3 stages of her pursuit. Think of this next part as your field guide for figuring out her investment level and knowing exactly what your next move should be. So, stage 1 is what we call testing the waters. This is where you'll see those quick texts, the light touching we talked about, and your response? Super simple. Match her energy or even slightly undermatch it. Just stay calm. Then we move to stage 2, securing attention. Now she might be the one planning a date, or maybe she buys tickets to a concert. Your move here is to reward that effort, but don't go crazy. A simple, hey, I appreciate that, is perfect. You want her to feel like she's making progress, not like the game is already over. And finally, you get to stage 3, deep pursuit. We're talking consistent contact, real escalation, and your only job at this point is to stay grounded and, this is the most important part, never ever become 100% predictable. Really, the big takeaway from all these stages is this: mystery is what keeps the momentum going. The second she feels like she has you completely figured out, that she's unlocked 100% of you, well, the pursuit is going to slow way down. You've got to always keep something in reserve. And all of this leads us to the final big picture rule that really ties everything we've talked about together. And listen, this isn't about playing games. It's all about one thing: polarity. Let's look at the difference, because it's night and day. On one side, you've got chasing. That's when you're responding instantly, you're over-complimenting, your energy is way higher than hers. But on the other side, you have polarity. This is calm responses, graciously accepting her compliments and rewarding her effort proportionally. The rule of thumb here is so simple. You never invest more than she does. You let her be the one to close that gap. And I really want to drive this point home. This is not about manipulation. The goal is simply to create an attractive polarity. When you stop chasing, when you end that overinvestment, and when you make your attention something that has to be earned, you fundamentally change the entire dynamic between you two. So what's the result of all this? Well, you create real intrigue. You create a healthy bit of uncertainty. And that tension, that becomes the magnetic force that just pulls her towards you. Once you master this, that feeling of having to chase a woman, yeah, that becomes a thing of the past. For good. So let's just leave it with this one final thought. If attraction really is a dance, you got to ask yourself, in your dance, who are you letting lead?